All right, we are live. Hello and welcome everyone to another Chat and Learn here with Power to Fly. My name is Marielle Marie, and as always, super excited to roll into this next hour with you all. We've got folks calling from all over today. I'll give you all a little shout out. I know that we've got some extra folks joining, so please go ahead and write in the chat where you're calling from. It looks like we got London in the house, Indianapolis in the house, Dallas, Texas, Northern California, Atlanta, New Jersey, LA, San Diego, Colorado, we got Canada representing, Ontario, Canada, Vancouver, SoCal. Awesome. So continue to drop things in the chat. We really want you all to use the chat box to connect with each other and, to share any resources and any of your own tips and tricks as well. You all have submitted some great questions previous to this conversation. So before we roll into our Q&A session here, just want to go over some quick housekeeping guidelines to make sure that everyone is comfortable and confident in this next hour. We would love for you to participate. I know that video fatigue is real, and I know that some of you might have some, virtual interviews coming up. So might as well turn your cameras on and practice with us today. No shame if you don't want to turn your cameras on, but I know that some people need that extra invitation to join us virtually with your cameras on. So feel free to participate that way. We believe in visibility. I try to, create as safe of a virtual space as I can. I'm not afraid to kick people out if we're not being respectful of everyone's voices. So feel free to participate that way by turning your cameras on. You all can also request to hop off mute if you have any questions or reflections of your own that you'd like to share. If you do want to hop off mute, just give me a cue by raising your emoji hand, or you can let me know in the chat that you'd like to hop off mute. And as time allows, I will add you to the queue and allow you to hop off mute. If you do come off mute, you will be featured in our live recording as this is being recorded. And this is a great reminder for those of you who signed up for this conversation, be looking out for a rewatch email. That rewatch email will include a link to this very recorded chat that you can rewatch on your own time. You can also share with your community, your colleagues, your family. And then it will also include any links to resources that our guest speaker might bring up throughout the hour. So be sure to look out for that rewatch email. And if anyone has any sensitive information and you prefer to be kept anonymous, but you still want to, share your voice, feel free to chat to me privately. So you can find me under Mariella Marie in the chat. Write to me privately there, and I'll raise your question or your reflection and keep you anonymous, just so that we can, make sure that we have our access needs met there. The last thing I'll say is that we'd love for you to follow Power to Fly on socials and subscribe to Power to Fly's YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store. And I'll just take a couple seconds to introduce myself. If this is the first time you're joining a chat where I'm moderating, hello, welcome. So happy to have you here. If you're rewatching, great that you're rewatching. I really love speaking about the importance of emotional intelligence at home, at work, and at play. And I know, especially for this conversation about interviews and how to, be confident in interviews, I'm really curious on hearing what you all have to say and what our guest speaker has to say about these so-called soft skills that I like to call them essential skills or power skills. So if I might philosophize or, share some actionable tips on how to deepen our emotional intelligence. And otherwise, I invite you all to support the project that I'm working on that is called the Positive Force Team. You can go to thepositiveforceteam.org, sign up for our newsletter, or I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn. Now, without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to LaShawnda, who actually had the pleasure of interviewing for a recent summit at Power to Fly back in March, I think it was. So I was happy to see that she's coming on for a chat and learn where you all get to ask her more questions, because I think we only had 30 minutes during the summit. So, LaShawnda, I'd love to pass the mic to you so you can introduce yourself for those who did not get a chance to see you speak at the summit. Let us know about yourself and what you're excited to share today.
Hi, everyone. I am LaShawnda Rodgers. I am a ball of energy. I love people and I love life. And I'm most excited about seeing people win in their professional and personal life. And I'm smiling because I truly love people. And anytime I have an opportunity to encourage someone, to inspire someone, I really grasp to those opportunities. So thank you for tuning in today. Thank you.
Yes.
A little bit about my background. I have a bachelor's of science in business administration and a dual degree in CIS, which is computer information systems. I have an MBA in marketing. I'm also a certified Scrum Master, and I'm about to take my PMP, which is a little crazy. I am currently the founder and CEO of Rodgers Global Leadership Consortium, where we provide leadership development training to mid to large organizations to help them better create environments that people actually want to be at. So what that looks like is a real diverse work environment, whereas there's true diversity throughout all levels of leadership, whereas everyone has opportunity to grow, which means they have access to training, professional development, be able to go on simulations, an opportunity to really just to see what it would be like in another role. From numerous surveys, it's come to my attention that people have really just left because they don't feel valued. And so I want people to feel valued and loved at the place they work at, because I truly believe you can love where you work. It's just, having that right culture fit. But I don't even like culture fit, having the right environment. And I think as a leader, we have to create an environment that you want to be at. Great, I'm glad to be here today. And that's just a little bit about me. I'm also a mentor. I'm the vice president of community outreach for Blacks in Technology, whereas we help to encourage minorities within tech. So I do mentoring, helping them get opportunities if they want to break into tech, internships, careers. If I can help to share a resource, that is something I do as well. So please, I drop my LinkedIn in. So if you have any questions, please feel free to message me. I'm friendly, I don't bite. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm also a mother of 3 amazing sons, and I have a husband of 15 years who's still here.
Nice. Lots to learn from you. You are definitely building an empire over there. And I just love the way you speak about your work. And for those of you who didn't get to hear me interview LaShawnda on our summit, she was speaking to this, the great resignation that's happening in Northern America, and, just hearing her thoughts on that. So I definitely recommend rewatching. Now, LaShawnda, I know that we're going to get to these awesome questions that folks have submitted, but I'd love for you to just set the stage before we jump into our questions by covering these 3, main takeaways for today. I know you'll probably dive in deeper on some of these when we get to the questions, but feel free to read what's on the screen or speak to, your main takeaways for today's conversation.
So the main takeaways, the first takeaway is, how do I bring my authentic self to the interview? And that is something, especially as minorities, that we struggle with. And I think, matter of fact, I think everyone struggles with that, especially if you're a woman in a corporate realm or trying to climb the ladder. We all struggle with being our authentic self. Is it my accent? Am I too heavy? Am I too small? Am I too short? Do I know enough? So I want to talk about how to bring your authentic self and not to worry about, what others so much think of you. Is more so of, how do I see myself and what do I want to portray to the world? And then the next takeaway would be how to communicate your brilliance without sounding conceited. We all have heard people talk about themselves a little too much. And so I want to address, how do I answer the tell me about yourself without sounding like you're writing a bio all about yourself for a whole hour. Nobody wants to hear your life story for a whole hour. I'm joking. But that's we're going to talk about that, because that's another thing that I've heard from a lot of leaders when they're interviewing people for next level. They struggle with, how do they talk about themselves? And then lastly, how I want to cover how self-preparation helps you for your interview. A lot of times we don't take into account how we take care of our mind, having adequate rest, studying, making time to de-stress from everyday activities. That really does show up in your interview. And so those are the 3 major takeaways for today.
Awesome. Great. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that I can pull up these awesome questions that folks have submitted previous to this conversation. So I see that we've got more folks joining. Hello and welcome, everyone. Let me just put the spotlight on you so that you have the authority here when you speak, LaShawnda. And I know that you actually had some questions that you wanted to get kicked off with. So let me just refer to that question here. And again, I want to say, if you're joining us and a question comes to mind, and you didn't get a chance to submit it, feel free to drop those questions in the chat box. I'm curious to know if anyone has any interviews coming up like now, like if you've already have an interview scheduled, just drop a +1 in the chat. Just would love to see, who's calling here live. All right. So how to bring your authentic self to an interview. Let's start with this first question. So how can we bring our authentic selves to interviews?
It really starts first with knowing who your authentic self is. So many times, we wear masks as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, as a project manager, as all these many hats that we can lose our identity. And so when we go to the interview, we have 20,000 hats on. And so the interviewer doesn't know who we are. We don't even know who we are. And so it really starts with knowing who you are. And what that looks like is, who am I as a person? What are my strengths? What makes me the best person in the whole world? What asset am I to not only this organization, but to the world? What value do I bring? And so, who are you outside of work? A lot of times we tend to identify ourselves by our job titles. Like, if I was to ask Nancy, who are you? She may possibly say based off of her job title, but that's not who you are. You're invigorated, you're expiring, you're progressive, you're forward thinking. That is who you are. And so when we go to the interview, we want to talk about our strengths. Who am I outside of my job? What do I bring to the table? What are the values? I pay attention to detail. I'm able to grasp information thoroughly and expound on that. And so when you bring your authentic self to the table, you're not so much tied to the job, but it's more so, who am I as a person? Who am I to society? Do I volunteer for Habitat for Humanity? So that shows the interviewer, okay, she has a social impact. She cares about what goes on around her. And so they're looking at the whole picture when they're interviewing you. So when you bring your authentic self, what does that also look like? It looks like, am I changing my hair to fit in? A lot of times, especially in certain cultures, we're taught to straighten our hair because we want to fit in. We think it makes us get the job. But come with your fro, come with your curls, with your braids. Be yourself. And this is who you are, because it shows your personality. It shows, this is me, and I'm confident. And too many times, a lot of times we're told to code switch. And I know if you do research, code switch is basically just becoming someone else to fit in, which is usually for a job, where they're straightening the hair, trying to change your voice because you have a stronger accent than others. But no, I want you to bring all of you. Bring your bubbliness, bring your laughter, bring your smile, bring your poise, bring your attitude, your positive attitude to the interview. And that really shows out, because some people are looking for an exciting person. Maybe everyone on the team is a certain personality style, and you will bring life to the team. And so we want you to come and be invigorated. We want you to be exciting. So again, knowing who you are, knowing what this means, not only to you, but to your family, and then to others that look like you. And then also being present is how you bring your authentic self. A lot of times we tend to look around, we want to twiddle our thumbs when we're interviewing, but be honest about why you're here, why you're interviewing for the job, why you think that you're the best person for this next career move. And then don't lie about your shortcomings. When you're being truly authentic, you can say, yes, I left this role after 3 months because, and don't necessarily expound on the negativity. Use it as, I need a better opportunity, or there was a health concern in my family. But then also try to correlate as to why you're ready now. No, you want to try to just find a way to expound on how you're still amazing and how you're still great. And even though you may lack experience in a certain area, based off of my previous position, this is what I bring to this role. And so that being honest also is necessary when it comes to talking about your next job, where they ask, hey, I don't think your job experience meets this role. And you can say, well, actually, my previous role at Costco was a team lead, which prepared me for the senior management role because I led a team of 50. We increased margins by 75%. So you want to be able to, number one, include numbers, and then to show how your previous role relates to this role, and then to speak on how you have cross-functional skills. And so again, that's just being honest and saying, hey, yes, I may not have actual work experience, but I attended a cybersecurity boot camp. I received my certification. I volunteered with Habitat for Humanity doing coding. And so try to think of experience you currently use that you can use to expound on that may take away from the lack that you're missing, but also show that you add value. And then lastly, let your personality shine through. Again, and I can't stress this enough. As a mentor and even as a coach, I'm always talking to professionals who are stressed out. They're overworked and they're tired. They're tired of smiling when they're sad. They feel they can't be honest. Be honest. Look, I'm looking for a change. I want to work for an organization that values everyone. I want to work for a company that's forward moving and that values diversity, that values growth, and that I can make an impact in society. And just be honest about that. And again, smile, be bubbly. Now, I'm not saying do the Cabbage Patch or the MC Hammer on camera, but just, be your loving self. And don't feel like you have to be a robot and not move during the interview. So that is my little talk on bring your authentic self.
I love that. And there's so much to unpack there. I already see some questions coming up in the chat. And I'm going to get to these questions shortly, but I just want to flag that we've got several people who dropped a +1 in the chat who currently have interviews scheduled. Lila has, or Lila, excuse me if I mispronounce, has an interview next week. Brandy has an interview today. And we got some folks dropping +1s that they've got interviews scheduled. So good luck, everyone. Make sure that you drop your questions live here in the chat. So I know that we're going to get to this next question that was previously submitted, but I would love for you to unpack this question here that was just dropped to the chat. So what advice do you have for introverts on showing their authentic selves? So, you're saying to have this, bring your best self and all these things, especially in a virtual space. How does someone who considers themselves an introvert do that virtually?
Even as an introvert, a smile, because I'm an extrovert by nature, which it probably shows, but even as an introvert, you have qualities that make you unique, that make you you. Show your smile, nod, agree. And that's another thing. Be yourself. If you're not a talker, please don't start talking a lot and rambling on, because we can tell this is not you. Just smile and just answer confidently and be poised. And then eye contact. Eye contact is the #1 game changer. And so again, just nodding, smiling, agreeing, but then #1 in your mind, telling yourself, I'm a winner. Those affirmations are a necessity. Every day, I'm awesome. What is for me is attracted to me. The world is mine. Everything that is not drawn to me is beneath me. I mean, we got to start looking at ourselves as being the amazing person we were created to be. And so even as an introvert, when you have that confidence of knowing that you were created to be amazing and to win in life, it will shine from the inside out, and your smile, you'll be poised, and you're able to answer every question clearly and with thought. I see you nodding.
No, yes, I was just looking like, okay, what question do I go to after this? Because I see some live questions in the chat, but also some great questions that were previously submitted. So I'd love for you to unpack what you spoke about in your introduction, actually, on how to speak about yourself confidently without feeling guilty or shameful, that you are like doing too much bragging or, conceited, as you put it. I know there's a boundary and I know there's a fine line. So I'd love to hear, your take on like, how to, speak truthfully, honestly about yourself with confidence, but to not go overboard to where maybe you're being a little too egotistical and taking up time.
A good way I always recommend is to rehearse. A lot of times when we don't rehearse in the mirror and then record ourselves so we can see, #1, I say rehearse in the mirror to see how you look. When you pronounce certain words, what is your body language? Are you frowning your forehead up when you're talking about a past work experience? Do you look like you're excited to be here? Because those are things that you can fix. And then I would also recommend interview with someone else, interview prep, have a friend, or either there are organizations that would do it for free. Allow them to provide feedback, to meet with you and ask you questions, and then just take their feedback and apply it. And so that is something I really, really recommend, because they would say, hey, look, you're rambling on, or you spoke on things that were not necessarily relevant to the question that would ask. And that'll help keep you accountable. And I would also say set a time limit. Because I am an extrovert by nature, I try to make sure to say no more than 2 to 3 sentences, if possible. And then I will stop and I'll pause and I'll look at the interviewer's face to see if he wants me to go forward or she. Because a lot of times, if you're talking too much, they'll start fidgeting papers, they'll start looking around, and they'll take away from the interview. And there, you can tell even their body language changes. And so you really want to pay attention to the cues that they're giving you to say, hey, you know what? I'm talking too much. Let me just chill out. And you can even ask, because I'm a talker as well. And so I'll ask, hey, am I talking too much? Did I address your question appropriately? And a lot of times they'll be honest. They'll say, well, can you expound a little more? Because sometimes you can say too little. And so they're saying, hey, can you provide more insight on this? Or no, you answered it correctly. So again, gauging their interest by their expressions, their body language, and then again, interviewing with other people, watching videos to, number one, make sure that you're not going overboard, but really trying to limit it to those 2 sentences will keep you from going on. But then also stay on task. One thing I always do, I have a OneNote. So I recommend this to everyone. Have a OneNote or a Google Note, something where you can take notes of the question. So they ask you the question, write the question down, and then make sure that you have your bullet points that you can address. That way you're not saying a bunch of unnecessary things. You can glance at and speak to it.
I love that the empathy piece, essentially, like learning how to read other people's body language, learning how to read your own body language. I definitely am an advocate for practicing. And actually, I'm just going to use this as an opportunity for folks to connect with each other on LinkedIn, or, whatever your preferred way of connecting is. Go ahead and drop your preferred way of connecting in the chat. And then reach out to a couple folks, and ask, respectfully, if you all can get together and do some interview, mock interviews or rehearsing. And I know that might make people like shake because it sounds like so nerve-wracking, but I think it could actually be beneficial because then you break the ice. You're doing it with someone maybe you've seen online a couple of times here, in these safe spaces where clearly we're all interested in how to, bring our best foot forward, show our best face here on an interview. So connect here in the chat box. I'm leading by example. Shawnda also dropped her LinkedIn. So go ahead and drop your preferred ways of connecting. And then I invite you all to respectfully build meaningful connections and reach out to folks there. All right. So I do actually have a question that came up in a private chat here. And I would love to hear your response to this question, LaShawnda. So with everything going on today, how do you stay calm in an interview if you are a marginalized person? So if you come from any kind of marginalized community, how do you stay calm in an interview?
Remember your why. You have to remember your why. And I really truly believe this. That's in every aspect. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What can I do to change the world? And I believe once you know your why, even I am a marginalized person, so I understand. And with what's recently happened, I'm infuriated. I am upset, but I understand that my employer didn't do this. The company I'm interviewing with, they weren't the one that permitted these things to happen. So I have to keep everything in its perspective and keep it separate, but making sure that, number one, I take time to mentally get the help that, and what I mean by this, like speaking to someone, when I speak about the mental, because a lot of times we need to talk to someone to help us to process our thoughts, with what's going on in society, all these killings and all this, it's a lot. And then when you go into the interviews, it shows that you're stressed. And especially if it's someone that doesn't look like you can portray that to the interviewer. Then you've already given a perception that may hinder you for the rest of your career with that company. Because unfortunately, some people do put notes in. And unfortunately, it does follow you. And even though you may not have noticed it, when you're applying again for other jobs, they've already put a flag or a note in there about your attitude, about your posture, all these things. So I would really say, number one, just take time to take everything in, get whatever self-care, whatever help that you need to really be one with yourself, whether that's yoga, whether that's meditation, whether that's prayer. and then really just taking time to breathe. And then going forward, knowing I'm here to make an impact. I can change the world with my skills, with my values, with what I bring to the world. I can create a better tomorrow.
I love that. And to your point, there are some companies that are asking, even though we're it's interesting because we're trying to get out of this. I'll say, historically speaking, we haven't been able to bring our full selves to work, right? We've had to check things at the door and not bring it in. There's been like, you cannot speak about certain things here at work. What I love is that more and more companies are seeing that actually this is a big piece of the human puzzle. We cannot ask a human to come to work and be, productive at whatever, however productivity is defined, and expect them to, not speak their truth and bring their authentic self. So I find this very interesting in the interview because I think this is actually a good moment where you can find out if this kind of company that you're interviewing for allows it or doesn't. And are you okay with that? Because there are some companies that say, no, we don't allow for any kind of this talk. And well, that's their decision. And clearly people work there. Are you okay with that? And there are other companies that are saying, yes, we have these, employee resource groups. We have, X amount of funding that you can use for any kind of retreat or mental health thing, or, it's like, so there are companies that do cater to that. And so really you are in a beautiful moment in that interview chair, able to ask, how do you all approach this? Is this something, is there a no talk policy on this, or do you have some supporting, employee resource groups or other things? So actually it's a great, interviews are always, a two-way street. And that's what I also want to tell our live guests here who are calling today. You have as much power as the interviewer does. So yes, take that power.
And thank you for speaking on that, because that actually runs into one of my other questions I have to answer later. But when interviewing, that's why I say know your why and what type of, and knowing who you are. You have to know what type of organization best fits your needs and where you're thrive at. When I was interviewing, I asked about the diversity. I asked about the resource groups. I asked about professional development. Do you provide professional development for all your employees? Or is it just the CEO? Is it just the VP? Do you have employee resource groups? And then I asked them to tell me about them, because it's easy to say yes, but if they can really tell you about them and then the strides they made, the things they're doing in their community, then it's a win-win. But if it's not something that's important to you, if they have Black associations in tech, or if they have a women resource group, or a mom or a wife supporting group, then it's not really important. But if that is a definite yes or no, ask those questions, because you don't ever want to be in an organization that cannot fit your needs. And I'm so glad it is a two-way street. Just like they're interviewing you, you're interviewing them, baby. Let me tell you, they need to check those boxes out too. What is their social impact? How did they react to George Floyd? How have they reacted to what just happened this weekend? Are we having talks? Is there open conversations where if I'm an employee, I'm having a breakdown, I can come and talk to you without being written up, without having to worry because I need a few minutes? So, ask those questions. And if you've seen that when you're interviewing that they're kind of shying away or saying not yet, you may want to the left. So
I agree. It's a two-way street for sure. And I know that sometimes like, okay, I need the job, so I need to try to, just, have flying colors, stars all around. But you also don't want to sell yourself to something that you're going to regret, or, looking for ways to back out later. So actually this brings us to this next question that you're kind of touching on already. And I also have a private message here that I can tie into this question. So what would be some questions that I can ask the interviewer about the company and the role? And this question that I have, this private question reads, what's a tactful way to ask about well-being and work-life balance at a company? So this is like one example of a question that I think is very important to ask. How do they value, psychological safety, well-being in general, and work-life integration or work-life balance? Maybe that's one of the questions that, you can ask the interviewer. But I would love to just hear you speak to this question. What would be some questions outside of the one I just said that was a private message that I can ask the interviewer about the company and the role?
There are several questions. I would say one of the most important questions is about the opening, like how is this role? Is it a new position? And this is something that I asked to number one, find out, hey, did someone leave? Did someone quit? Is there a company growth? And so I would ask, I'm trying to say how would I would ask about is this a new position created because of growth? And that way they'll say either yes, someone was promoted, or they'll say, oh, we didn't have enough manpower to meet the needs. And so that way you can kind of gauge if it's a good fit. And I'm gonna give a good example. There's a company here who keeps laying off thousands of people every couple months. And I've had someone call me for that. And because I know that, by you asking certain questions, you can go do your own research and say, okay, they weren't candid or they were. And so you can say, okay, well, it's a hard pass or it's a definite yes. So definitely ask about, is this position open due to growth, or or what led to that opening? Another one is definitely ask about the day-to-day responsibilities. And this is so important because you want to know, number one, is this a position that you can see yourself doing on a daily basis? Because a lot of times we don't ask the right questions. We might not know that we need SQL, or we need to do programming, or we need to know a little AWS. So you need to ask, you can know if you're going to be on commission, or if this role requires you to make 700 calls a month. And so definitely ask them to elaborate on the day-to-day responsibilities. How do you measure success? And this is so important, because every company doesn't have a 30, 60, 90-day policy. There are organizations out there that don't really have a 30-day when you first start. It's more so, hey, until you're comfortable, we'll keep working with you. And then there are some companies that believe in 30 days, you should know everything. And so again, how do you measure success? And then ask them, what does success look like to them? Because you want to make sure that you and them are on the same plane when it comes to understanding what the expectations are. Another thing I would ask is, what are some challenges faced in the team? And then once they tell you what the challenges are, you can come in and say, well, this is how I can meet those challenges, because you want to show how you add value, how you come in and mediate those so they're no longer an issue. But you really want to come in and know like what the challenges are. For example, let's say during peak time, everyone has to work 12-hour days and they don't have enough manpower. You may not want this job. And so, or if you're required to pick up 5 additional certifications, those are things you need to know. What does the career path look like? Or is there a career trajectory? I know a lot of industries have gotten away from a career path, but there are some companies and industries like finance, whereas there is a ladder that you climb based off that trajectory. And so if you're someone that wants to grow to a different avenue, then that role may not be the best fit for you. You may want something that's not linear, but it's more vertical. I can actually email, I can drop what I do, I have like 30 questions that I ask, but those are really the most important ones. And also, a lot of people don't ask about salary, but it is to me, it's very important because we have families to take care of, we have ourselves. So you want to make sure that this role financially would be beneficial to you. And so I would ask, what is the compensation band for this role? Or the compensation budget. That way you can know if it's a good fit. It would really be harmful to you to go through 10 interviews or 5 interviews just to find out the job is 50% low on what you could use to take care of your family. So definitely ask those compensation questions. And some people don't ask those, but I ask them because it's important to me. Yes, I have to work, but I also have to take care of my family, I have bills, I have pay for gas. And then you want to also know, I definitely ask about the diversity, ask about their social impact, what do they do for during holidays. A lot of times, some companies, they're doing a shutdown, employees are required to use their own time off. And if you don't have time off, you're not paid. And so definitely, especially as a contractor or even as a regular full-time employee, ask about those Christmas shutdowns to see if you need to negotiate that into your compensation package when you're interviewing. Because your compensation package is not just your salary, it's also your professional development. If you want to get a certification, it's your equity, it's your stock options, it's your self-care days. If you need a mental health day, I mean, it is so much broader than just our salary. So definitely ask for a full review of what the compensation looks like for that role.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually got a private message here speaking just to that, saying that if salary isn't mentioned in the interview, what's a delicate way to bring it up? And I think that that's a beautiful way to bring it up. So would you like to focus any more on that specific question? Because I know, salary is a big part of the interview process. And also, I don't think that, any negotiation needs to happen on the first interview. Or do you think so? I feel like, if you make it to the next round, maybe that's when negotiation powers of negotiation start to kick in. But yes, of course, salary should be brought up in the first interview, just to, understand and know, is it worth it for you? Or do you need to just go ahead and cancel the next one and try to find another interview? So I'd just love to hear your reflection on that.
For me personally, I do ask because I'm at a point in my career, I'm not willing to compromise on who I am and what my needs are. And that's what I spoke about, knowing who you are and bring your authentic self. I know I'm awesome. I know I work hard to get to where I'm at. I know what I bring to the table. And then based off the research that I pulled, market from Glassdoor, hired another avenues, it shows this is what they're recommending, but I know my worth. And so when you know your worth, ask those questions. And when you're confident, and if you're not so confident in what the salary is for that job market, then maybe wait until the second interview. But when you've been doing this for 5, 10, 15, you ask, baby. You ask, hey, what is the salary band? Because this happened to me one time. I had an MBA at the time. I was interviewed for a job. I went through 4 interviews, 4-hour-long interviews, different days. They were trying to pay me $10 an hour with the MBA. They could have told me that the first interview, and I wouldn't have wasted my time. And so again, asking those questions, because it could be a great job, but if you can't take care of your family, then it's pointless. And so you don't be afraid to just kindly ask, hey, what is the salary band for this role? What is the budgeted range for this role? And majority of times the recruiter, they'll tell you, and they're a good recruiter or a sourcer will tell you if you're aiming too low. Because I've even had some to tell me, hey, you're aiming too low. And they'll go in and request something higher just because they see the value in me. And that's why it's great to interview outside of your organizations, because a lot of time when you're internally, it's only so much you're going to go. But when you leave the organization or you get an interview, a lot of times you'll find out people will pay you more. And when you hear people offering you more, it really changes your outlook on yourself. You're like, oh, wow, I am valuable. You know what? I am the best thing since sliced bread. And so it really changes your outlook on everything. So I definitely recommend ask those questions, especially if you're a contractor. If you're managed services, ask what the salary is. And then if they say no, like if they say, okay, well, this is our range, then ask for other options. Negotiate PTO, negotiate time off, negotiate flex schedule, negotiate stock options. Even negotiate being able to come in later, like those flexible schedules. You have the power. It's really in your hands. You just have to see it.
I love that. So we got some chatter in the chat saying, how do you get that confidence? Please spill the beans. So I know that you are a self-identified outrovert, extrovert. What tips do you have for someone who's looking for this confidence?
Oh my gosh, I have tons of tips, but I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't always this way. Originally, I used to be, well, I've never been quiet, but I didn't understand my worth. And I think by me working for so many organizations and feeling neglected, feeling unseen, feeling undervalued, and then having people outside to tell me how amazing I was, to offer me double, it really made me look at myself differently. And that's why I think it really helps to go outside of your comfort, go to meetups, go to career fairs, go to networking events, and meet other people. And if you share your story, if you talk about your experience, a lot of times they'll say, wow, you're underselling yourself. Or have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And that really helps. And so, yeah, I wasn't always this way, but through a lot of life's journeys, I realized how awesome I am and what I bring to the table. And so I would tell everyone here, you're awesome too. You're unstoppable. You have power within you. Everything you need is already in you. When we were created, you were created by the most awesome God ever. And so you can do anything. And I really want to say, just believe in yourself. And every morning say, I'm awesome. And if you really let that resonate, there's nothing you can't do. And even with opportunities that you think are missed, you'll say, oh, I was better than that anyway. And you really begin to embrace that. And so really look in your mirror every day, say, I'm awesome. I matter. I am valuable. I am the MVP of my life. I bring everything to the table. The world is mine. And then say, when you go to the interview, you sit there confidently ready to tell them why you're amazing.
I love that. And yes, thank you for sharing your personal experience. And, for those who are wondering, how to work on this, it's work, it's practice, because everything else in our society tries to, shut that down and make us think twice about our beauty standards and are we being productive and do we fit in, or how can we add, our value. So, it's definitely helped me as well to get out of that mental, I don't know, tornado, because then we're stuck and then we get in our own way. So I definitely recommend for folks to, look into some personal practices on confidence, emotional intelligence. For me, self-awareness is the first starting point on emotional intelligence. Self-awareness. How much time do we put, per day consciously, saying, okay, now I'm going to contemplate. But I'm told that contemplation isn't productive. So then you have to decide, but is it productive for me? Or do I, keep myself busy and then just forget a part of myself that could come up in these moments of contemplation? Anyway, that's a deeper talk. And we've got about 15 minutes left. So I see we got the chat box is on fire right now. Here, Monica writes, I think the most important thing is confidence, because I am sure of all the skills that you already have. If you don't have all the skills, you will learn them. So yes, absolutely, Monica. Thank you for that. So speaking of skills, actually, a couple questions came through with regard of, feeling that they don't have enough experience. So whether it be folks who are transitioning careers or, who have taken a career gap or who are entering into the workforce, how can they display confidence when they know that they lack certain skills and experiences, and maybe have even failed previous interview attempts, so what can these people do? And I'll also say there are some interesting metrics that are out there that show specifically for women are less likely to apply to roles if they don't meet 100% of the job description. And that is just something that as often as I can, I like to demystify that, because there are very few people that meet 100% of the roles. And actually, in the same study, people who identify as, cisgendered men don't do that. They apply even if they have 50% of the requirements. So I just want to demystify that and open up that. So Shawnda, would love to hear you respond to this question: how to display confidence when you lack certain skills and experiences, as folks are entering into this new career.
Again, it's all in the mind. And it really starts in your mind. And as a leadership coach, and even as a mindset transformation coach, I tell my clients that it starts in your mind. Whatever you can believe, that's what will happen. And so a lot of times, if you begin to think, hey, I'm confident, I got this, I'm amazing, I'm going to rock the heck out of this interview, you will go in that interview and you will accelerate that brilliance and the excellence. And so a lot of times we're focused on the negative. Or I didn't sit up straight, I didn't say this in the interview, my posture was bad, I stuttered, I slurred my words, I didn't have eye contact. All of those I negative. They're hurting they're internally telling you I'm not enough. They're telling you for the next time that comes around, you wasn't enough, then you're not enough now, you're never going to be enough. So number one, you have to get rid of those negative thoughts that say, hey, I suck, I'm a failure, I'm not a winner, I'm a loser, I'm never going to be great. Nope, that is not fact. That is a lie. That's not reality. And then tell yourself the truth. I am a winner. Everything attached to me wins. And then you got to also, I would say, prepare for where you're going. That is so important when you're lacking certain skills. So even though you're telling yourself, I'm awesome, I'm amazing, if you don't prepare yourself by upskilling, by reading articles, by joining communities like Hard Black is one of them, Trabaja, Blacks in Technology, hey, Power to Fly, so much great information, resources from summits and career fair. It's so much in our reach. We just have to take the time to utilize it. And so if you're lacking those skills, go to coffee chats, join these communities that I've mentioned, meetups, and then meet other people. That would definitely help to boost your confidence. And then again, clearing off your mind what happened yesterday, affirming to yourself that I'm a winner, and then telling negativity to take a hike. And then also, when you walk into that interview, you walk in with your head high, and or if you're virtual, you sit postured and you do your breathing and you get ready to ace that interview, knowing that I got this, I've studied, I've researched the role, I've researched the company, I know my resume, I know what I'm gonna say. And then you just go in there with a clear mind. And the worst thing we can do is to say why I'm not qualified. Never say I don't have enough experience, or even though I don't have the knowledge, I can learn it. When you start saying I don't know, I've never done it before and can't learn it, you're already stumping your own foot, and you're already saying, yes, my resume says that I don't have, and my mouth says that I could, but when I just spoke right then, I just erased all of that. And so you want to speak to, I may not have you may want to say something to the stress of, yes, I have attended a boot camp that utilizes these skill sets, and this is how it applies to the role. So instead of saying I do not have experience, find something in your previous work experience or background that can correlate, because I promise you, there's always a cross-functional skill somewhere in there that can correlate. If you talk to people on a daily basis, guess what? You're a collaborator. If you work in teams, guess what? You do team building. If you're creating presentations or Excel, guess what? You know, analytics. And so find out what's in your background and then try to translate to where you're going.
I love that. This is great. So actually, we've got 10 minutes left. I told you that time would fly. We've got lots of live questions happening in the chat. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, everyone. But if not, I definitely recommend connecting with LaShawnda. She'll drop her LinkedIn one last time. And of course, at the end, I'll have her vocalize that so you can connect and get more questions answered. So yes. Okay. Where do I go from here? All right. So what about asking for feedback? When a person may not get hired? Would love to hear you speak to that. And then also, there's another question here that's interesting. What are the main red flags that one should notice during interviews? So if you can speak to, like, red flags in an interview so that you can keep that in mind. And then if you don't get, called back, is it okay to ask for feedback?
Yes, definitely. Yes. I would say, I'm going to talk to the red flags and first during an interview. Body language. We miss this so much. Body language. And this is for both persons. If you're the interviewer and if you're the interviewee, it goes both ways. If they're picking up their cell phone when you're talking to them, they're scrolling. If they're saying, hold on camera or in person, and they're talking on the phone in front of you, it's a red flag that they lack discipline, they lack respect. And if they don't respect you in the interview phase, they're definitely not going to respect you once you're an employee. And so really take that to consideration. What is their tone like? Are they really aggressive or are they passive? And I really pay attention to that, because sometimes you can pick that up with your responses. The tone may change and may get more stern. I know this has happened to me with a couple males in an interview, and I quickly emailed the recruiter and I said, this is not a good fit for me. just because of how the tone and everything shifted. And so really paying attention to, are they rude? Are they tardy? Are they late? If we're scheduled for an interview at 1 o'clock and you show up at well 2 o'clock or even not at all, and you don't even send an email saying, hey, I was in a hospital or something happened, can we reschedule? That really shows negligence and a lack of respect for me. And so again, if you're treating me this way before I'm an employee, how would the relationship be once I'm internal? And so really pay attention to those. And then lack of ownership. If a mistake was made, whether it was giving you the wrong contact, sending you the wrong job, making, saying, I'm sorry, I apologize for that, and then providing a resolution. And I would also say, is the interviewer unprepared? I've interviewed interviewers as well, and they were not prepared. They didn't know about the job. They didn't know about the salary band. They didn't know anything. They kept saying, let me get back to you. And so for me, that was a red flag. When I ask about diversity groups, so basically their ability to answer your questions and then to really give that eye contact. But the most important question, why do you like your job? I would ask them, what do you love most about your job? If they start stuttering, looking around, they can't answer the question, it's a red flag. It's definitely a red flag. I've had a couple of people that really couldn't give me an answer. They said, let me get back to you. And they never got back to me. And so if they ghost you, don't chase after them. And it is okay to reach out for feedback if you're denied an opportunity. But hey, it was a pleasure meeting with you. I noticed that I was not afforded opportunity to work with you. Can you please provide feedback? And what this does, this tells you what to work on, because it may have been a great interview, but there was someone internally that was a better fit, or that may have been easier to transition to that role. And so knowing that information, like what you can work on, if there's a skill gap, if there's a lack of posture, or you didn't speak clearly enough, you can work on those things. And then the next interview, you can rock the heck out of it. And so always ask for feedback so you can know how you can improve. Now, if they do not respond to your email, please don't send 10 emails saying, hey, I sent you an email, you didn't respond. Please don't do that. That's a definite red flag for you. But definitely follow up and ask for feedback so you can improve. And then also know where you stand with that organization.
Great. I know that you could probably just dive in so much deeper and just give like specific tips on all of these things. So I definitely again recommend everyone reaching out to LaShawnda after this chat, as we've got about 6 minutes left. I do want to touch on some things that are popping up in the chat. I have a private message and I see some public messages around the same topic. So do you stay in a toxic work environment while looking, or do you deal with the break in employment? That's a private message. And another public message that speaks to this, will it reflect poorly if I'm unemployed for a short period while applying for new jobs, or should I stick it out in a toxic work environment because it appears to be better to be employed while interviewing? So what do you have to say about that?
Honestly, okay, 6 minutes. Honestly, you deserve peace of mind. I believe that you are worthy of peace. You are worthy of respect. And so if a place does not serve you, then it really is time to go. You don't want to go into a workplace every day and have headaches and can't think and you're focused and depressed. I was that person every day. Before I even get to the building, my head would hurt. Every day I would throw up. It was the job. It was toxic. And I tried to stay. No matter what I did, it wasn't good enough. And so you have to be honest with yourself. Is this worth my mental health? Because guess what? You're internalizing all those stresses from work, and then you're taking it home to your children, to your loved ones. And so please love yourself enough to say, you know what? I deserve better. And if you can afford to walk away, I would say walk away. And so with the great resignation, a lot of employers now, they're not so much caring about that gap because people had COVID for the last 2 years. And so honestly, they care less about that 2-year gap than they do about your skills. If you can show your skill set, that will outwash any gap that you have. And I've heard this on LinkedIn. I've heard it in interviews, even talking with other leaders. They want to know, what do you bring to the table now? Now, if you can speak to and say, yes, I left this toxic work environment because XYZ, that even makes it more clear as to why there is a gap. Because they can say, well, my organization does this and we value everyone. We have resource support groups. We have mental health days. And that helps you also to make a better decision, because they may also have an open policy that allows you to talk to someone without worrying about being reprimanded. And so definitely, please put yourself first. Do not continue to go to environments that are mentally draining you and hurting you. And if you can afford to walk, then do so. But otherwise, I would say continue to interview while you're at that toxic job. But most importantly, do not decline your work. A lot of times when we're fed up with a job, we'll start coming in late. We won't produce. We let our numbers drop because we don't care no more. But you never know if you're going to run into those same people at another job. So always do your best, even if you're going to exit that organization. Have your game plan in hindsight, but still do your best, because this is your brand, baby. And you want your brand to be brilliant. And so plan your strategy, but also always do your best.
Absolutely. I call it the exit strategy. And really, even if you are sitting really comfortable in a role, there might be a chance where you need to exit. So I think to have these potential, opportunities to interview on our radar is important. At whatever phase you are, right? If you need one now, if you need one yesterday, if you don't know if you'll need one, but it's still, interesting to do that. And I also love the message on keep your integrity there, because I've also, I feel like probably all of us on this call, or many of us have been in that situation where we're ready to leave. Everything in our body is saying, I don't want to be here, but we're here. And then we start to show up late, like you said, or we start to, not care so much. And that self-sacrifice might end up, kicking us in the butt a little later. So actually, in that case, I recommend also leaving before things get too shady. And, there are other possibilities. I know that, we got to pay our rent and take care of our families and things like that. So like some freelancing work or contracting work that maybe, of course, will also give you some free time to think about what the next move is. Because I hate that some of us think that we have to stay in these toxic work environments. I directly relate that to toxic relationships in general, so I know that's a very, touchy topic in our world, unfortunately, but, hopefully we can come up with the answer to say, yes, I am worthy and I don't need to be within an abusive relationship, whether that be within a romantic relationship or in a professional relationship, because again, what LaShawnda has been telling us, we are worthy. So thank you so much for this beautiful talk. We've got folks in the chat writing that this has been wonderful. I'd love for you to just have the final words. Can you remind us how we can connect with you for those who want to continue the conversation? And then any final words, food for thought to end this conversation today.
You can connect me on LinkedIn. And again, I do provide coaching for those of us who are ready to, take control of our lives and to really be the best version of ourselves we can be. And if you need interview prep, I would gladly help you with that. If you want rehearsal, hey, I got you with that too. And if you're interested in working in tech, guess what? Hey, I'm here for that too. And so my LinkedIn is in the chat. I'm here if you need anything. And I just appreciate your questions and for tuning in today. And for everyone that's interviewing, you rock. Go and get that job.
Yes. Good luck, everyone. And we'll see you on the next Chat and Learn. Thank you so much, LaShawnda.